We are living in an independent state, but so many questions, so many issues are still connected with penitentiaries, with inmates. And in this environment, there are many stereotypes existing, and we are afraid to tackle these issues. We are kind of trying to distance ourselves from these issues, but this is very wrong. That's why today we have organized this discussion in cooperation with EEZ Norway colleagues, as well as their support. And this discussion could be also listened in English. You will be able to find it through European Economic Zone in webpage, and also through LAMP webpage. But today, for discussion, we have invited many experts of this area, professionals, representatives, with whom within 1.5 hours we will try to answer many questions. So, Mihail Popusevich, Director of State Probation Services, present here. Laila Medine, Deputy State Secretary of the Ministry of Justice. Ilona Spure, Director of Latvian Prison Administration, is present, as well as we do have an expert from Norway, Kims Ekshaugen, Director of International Cooperation Department of the Norwegian Corrections Services Directorate. All in all, now just for introduction, most probably this is the time, the 19th, 20th, 21st of August, when again and again we are talking about regaining renewal of our independence. We fought for it. That was a heavy battle. We got it back, but the occupation years that we have had have taken away a lot for us, taken away also a very important thing, namely human dignity. In many issues, in many aspects, human dignity during occupation time was not an important notion, but when regaining independence, it has to be the center of all the issues, and we have to discuss these issues. Also, a very important question is the human dignity in penitentiaries during execution of the sentence. I would like to divide our discussion in two parts. In the first one, we are going to talk about dignity from systemic perspective, from program perspective, from policy perspective, from this aspect. During the second time of our discussion, I would like us to talk about dignity amongst us, among human dignity between each other in the society, and also towards people who are imprisoned and who have their imprisonment time when it's over. And when starting our discussion, I would like to give the floor to Madam Spure to look back into the past, also to tell us how this penitentiary prison system looked like before, and how we changed it during our 30 years of independence, as well as what is our midterm perspective, how we are going to change this system with dignified behavior towards inmates. This is the beginning for us also to look back into the past, look at how and what we are now, and what the future looks like. Please, the floor is yours. Yeah, hello. Hello, everyone. I really wish for us a very fruitful discussion and good day. The question is very good because in retrospective issue, if we look at human dignity in our prison system like 30, 20 years ago, it has changed dramatically during this time, because speaking about dignity, the law also prescribed certain things that inmates had to observe, and they had to obey by the rule without having any rights. They just had obligations. We understand that there is a person who has committed crime, and he or she has to be isolated from the society, like in a warehouse, stored in a warehouse, not by taking care of that person with an aim to return him or her back to the society, and in what shape and form that person is going to be returned back to society. The work was mandatory. They worked in shifts, and they had no choice beforehand. Inmates didn't have any choice of profession or specialty to work in. In a way, this jump was at that moment when when we understood that by isolating a person, he or she doesn't become better. Quite the contrary. And working with these issues, we turn to the aim of punishment. And what is the aim of the punishment? Resocialization from the very first day when he enters prison, and how and in what shape and form this person is going to be returned to the society. That is our main task. And during this time, many specialists and social workers, psychologists have been invited to the prison. They work in prison. We think about human dignity, dignified relationship, and how to show right choices and values for those people, also to help to correct their behavior. This is the main aspect, what has changed. The aim and essence of punishment has changed. Thank you. If we look at these issues, the attitude from personnel is one thing, their professionalism. Also, the environment, I am sure, is very important for resocialization of those people, for returning them back to the society. What is happening with our prison infrastructure? How do they look like, our penitentiaries? When preparing for discussion, I read a lot, and I compare it with a good example. Prisons in Norway or penitentiaries of Norway, well, very often they are compared with deluxe hotels. What has happened with our infrastructure? Did we get from those times, have we adapted it, or have we built a new infrastructure? And what is there for the future? And also the new methods are very important to be implemented in the right environment, in the right infrastructure, because it is very important that in old type prisons where there are 10 or more people in a cell or all together, or if they are less in their cells, then the attitude as well as rehabilitation process is quite different. Their resocialization is quite different. What about the infrastructure? Quite right, says Madam Spure, because the environment can be the decisive factor towards dignity, and it has to be dignified. Our system has inherited colonies and Tsar-type prisons. At one point, we just changed the sign above the prison, but the infrastructure stayed the same, and we are still, unfortunately, using old infrastructure with units and cells where there are many people. And some time ago, like 60 people were living in one cell. And we cannot talk about resocialization in those circumstances when we understand that the daily work, day's work is over, but there the inmates' life goes on. And this is kind of a university society for criminals, where they influence each other emotionally and physically. That's why infrastructure is a precondition for dignified execution of sentence. That's why we are looking at the best example, including Norway's example, that we have to place inmates in one-person, two-person cells where we eliminate subculture, influencing each other mentally and physically, where a person can really re-socialize in an effective manner, so that the resources that we spend is efficient and is not in vain, and it bears fruit. And we really can prepare a person for returning back to the society. Thank you very much, Madam Spure. Looking at policy as such, or politics, what are the relations between the state and an inmate? Are those relations, or are those relationships dignified or based on dignity? Has something changed in the overall policy? That's one issue. And the second one about the infrastructure. Has the Ministry of Justice in midterm or long-term planned adapting of infrastructure? Maybe there is nothing to adapt. We just have to build new prisons. Let's start with this policy issue, whether these relations are dignified, and then let's talk about the infrastructure, please. Hello, and thank you very much for this possibility to be here and talk about the perspective of the Ministry of Justice on these issues. Speaking about policy, we have to return to the issue Madam Spure mentioned, namely that we received or inherited institutional framework from our past, when the state looked at inmates with an aim to brush under the carpet and to forget about them, believing that this is a mass that has to be eliminated and kept away from the society. And this is the basis how stereotypes were built, and how our society started looking at those people. Very seldom we looked at those inmates as humans who need help, just as a mass, gray mass, to be looked over. And this is how the law was built. Although the law has been amended, but still the penitentiary code is still the old one from the old times. And I think the Ministry of Justice has to deal away with it in the nearest future. But what has changed in this aspect from a gray mass perspective of a gray mass, where we are saying if you do something in 1 year, you receive that. If you do in 2 years, you receive that. Now we look at inmates as individuals, whether they are motivated. We work with everyone to make them motivated, and we look at our constitutional court, what they have decided, that the legislator pays very little attention to an individual situations, thus building dignified a relationship between an individual, be it an inmate or another person, and the state. And this is the way how to go. Speaking about infrastructure, if we have premises where people cannot honor themselves and be dignified themselves, where they have to spend time together with other 20 people, where they have to take a shower with others somewhere down the corridor. It is difficult to teach those people to honor and to be respectful of the state. And positive changes are very difficult to achieve. That's why the task of the state is to come up with a legislative framework as well as with infrastructure where everyone, employees, administration, also inmates, can respect each other and can build their relationships on a dignified basis. The existing infrastructure has been tidied already, and we cannot adapt it to any other extent, to any further extent, but in just some small projects connected with Norwegian financial instrument. But we have big plans for building a new prison in Liepāja, and we hope that it will work well. But big procurements are connected with big problems, and I hope that we will overcome those problems. And now our execution and the execution of the sentence in the future will be totally different from our Soviet legacy. So we learned about policy, also about infrastructure. A very important thing is personnel, namely employees, employees of prison administration of prison, how their relationships with inmates are developing. Madam Spura, can you just draw a picture whether employees do have special training? For police people have a police college. Cadets are prepared, they enter the system, then they study, they learn, and they go up the steps of career. How about prison administration? How young people, young specialists are being prepared? Are they just prison guards? Is their only task is to guard the doors of the cells, or do they form relationships, establish relationships with inmates? This is a very important issue. And do you have enough employees? Do you have enough staff? And have you also been learned and valued from our government? Maybe you have no problems with any staff issues. Yes, that would be good if we had no problems. Our staff is our main value, because in prison system, the main value is our employees and also our clients, namely inmates. Similar to Ministry of Interior structures, for example, Customs, Border Guard, we have a competition for our employees in the level of education, health, also sports ability, sports issues, but the only difference is that police and our firefighters do have their own colleges, primary educational establishments. Unfortunately, we do have only the training center. We do not have a college since 2008. When police academy was closed down, and our primary college was not renewed from 2008, and we feel this deficit. So we have a training center accredited program where we can teach our guards in the level of instructor, giving them the basic education for this vocation. Also, we have other subjects such as professional communication, but I believe it is too little. That's why we are now in the way to our new training center, thanks to Norwegian financial instrument and support of Norwegian colleagues. We have started building a training center for our employees. But not always the building is the main issue. Also speaking about the new prison, not the building itself is the one changing the system. The thing is about everything is about the content. And parallel to this project, we are implementing also EU projects, and one of the projects involve development, professional training of our personnel. Within the framework of their training program, we have modernized our system of evaluation of our staff, and we have prepared 3-level training system for our managers, also for personnel of resocialization, as well as our workers in safety and security. One of the main issues in those programs is communication, dynamic safety, art of communication, or communication skills. I think we have a lot to do in this area, but we are on the right way, and thanks also all the colleagues, as well as to our Norwegian colleagues who are helping us with all kinds of supports in order for us to implement our ideas, and in the perspective to become a modern penitentiary. This is a complex issue because when speaking about a new prison, dignified infrastructure where to execute a sentence in a modern way, we need amendments of the legislation, this framework, and as well as we have to fulfill it with a content which cannot be implemented without professional staff. That's why everything, all the mentioned aspects are very important. Thank you very much, Mr. Eckhaugen. We just heard about our experience, about our legacy, what we have inherited from previous times, what we have achieved in 30 years, how we amended our legislation, how we are trying to make our infrastructure better thanks to Norwegian financial instruments. I would like to have your professional opinion. Please evaluate our achievements, Latvia's achievements in this area.
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here, and these tricky questions you're asking. Evaluate the process. Yeah. Norway, and the correctional service in Norway, we are involved in 10 countries, 7 Norway grants countries or EEA grants countries, if you can say so, and Latvia is one of them. So I can actually compare the development in each country, where you are and where other countries are. And I'm honest when I'm saying that Latvia is in front. They are in front because the people here. Here you have the top management. You have the full support from the program operator. You have the PO and focal point and the Ministry of Finance. They understand each other. They're talking the same language, and that's very important. And when I have saying that it's important to have the leaders involved, Ilona, you're a very good role model for that, because she's always there. She's in all meetings. She's trying to understand, she's trying to instruct the officers under her, and they understand what she's trying to do. We don't see that in other countries. Mm-hmm. So you see, Ilona said it, the people is the most important resources we have. And this is also all levels in the hierarchy.
Yeah. Paldies.
Thank you very much. Let us take a next step. Penitentiaries. The person has completed its sentence. Now his or her way to return back to the society is starting. and he or she has to observe the rules that is being observed by the biggest part of the society, not to return back to committing crimes, to be accepted by the society. Mr. Popsuyevich, do tell, can we ensure overall the dignified return of those people to the society, for them to be motivated, and to return back to society, not just to be back there and be pushed away and to look for the next possibility to commit crime, and to return there where we feel the sense of belongings, where he has social skills. And thus this person is involved into the vicious circle. Can we untie this vicious circle and return the person back into the society? Hello, everyone who is here, also who is watching us online. I would like to divide this question into several parts, because often we have a simplified understanding of how we would like people to close back into the society. But this is not it's not starting from the way when this person gets out of the prison. It starts when this person was placed in the prison. There were some circumstances why this person committed crime. And this is why we have to talk about infrastructure of the society outside probation system, outside of prison system. We have to look at our society for people not to commit crime, for the person not to become an inmate. That is an extreme measure. That is an extreme stop, which can where there are no other way to go. These are just consequences, but we have to look at the circumstances. Let's also have a look at the person. There is one thing that we tell to our employees, which is also in our probation service. Employees is our main asset. Our staff, their knowledge, their ability to cooperate with other specialists. This is our main asset in order to help help our clients. And we have no fences. We have no enclosed place. We are teaching our staff that they have two aims. One extreme aim to not to somehow to help the person not to commit a crime, but this is an extreme aim. But the second aim is to diminish the gravity of the crime. If the person was involved into a burglary for the first time, but the second time he committed pickpocket or car burglary, that is already not so grave crime, or which probably was committed due to something that was done by our staff. And this is already something that we have achieved. Madam Medina said, let's put mention the thing, let's put a stamp, inmate, someone who has committed crime. We used a term client. We were not saying a criminal or an inmate. We talked about a client. This person can be young or old, a mother or a father, a person who was born in our society, most probably as a good child, but due to social circumstances, maybe genetical circumstances, this person has committed crime. But our task is to help and return back to the society, to this person. Behavior is something that is being taught. We are never born evil. We are all born good. This is something that the person learned later. And as Madam Medina said, individual approach, it has to be the basis of both our establishments. And there is no other way. And this philosophy has to be flagshipped by our employees. That's why they have to have skills and competencies. And they have to be dignified towards themselves. And they have to honor others, their colleagues, as well as clients. One more aspect, talking about rehabilitation, society itself. Are we ready as the society to accept that the person who has committed a grave crime to accept them back? And I will tell you an example. When I started working in probation service, we had a service post-penitentiary help to help people who return back to the society. They go to social services for the help. My first client was a person who, before that, spent 12 years in prison for a committed crime just during the old times, Soviet times, during collective farms time, when this person entered the prison for burning down a house and killing 2 people, committing murder, and it all happened in a small village. Everyone in the village knew about that, and this village was horrified of him returning back. And the mayor of this village said, "I'm ready to pay whatever you need to not to take him back." Not because he didn't have rights to return, but because he wouldn't face social problems. That's why we found another place for this person to live, because the society in that village was not ready to take him back. This is one more thing that we have to understand and solve. Many years have passed now in our prison administration and also penitentiary. We have volunteers, many volunteers. That means that in 17, 18 years, the society understands this aim group. And those stereotypes have changed. And I have to say that this person, from my example, have never committed crime afterward. He was so disoriented after that time. He didn't belong to that society because he left one system, collective system, and now we had capitalism 12 years ago. He couldn't understand why he cannot return back to the house because it was privatized, and he said, but it is empty and I can live there. But our volunteers do understand how these people feel, and they are of great big help. The institution of volunteers, we are going to talk about that a bit later, because it's very important to understand how we as a society can help people, or are we there? Are we ready to help these people and to get involved? Mr. Eckhaugen, you heard our experience, how we are doing with dignified attitude towards clients, towards inmates for their return to the society. Can you probably share Norway's experience, how you are dealing with it, how you develop dignified relationships between penitentiaries, with clients, with inmates, also with your legislative framework, how they are implemented and developed in Norway?
I will try. Let's have in mind that mostly all prisoners will be released one day. Some of them not, but mostly all of them will be released. So when they are in our system, we have the opportunity to change something. That means they are there, they are present, they are mostly sober, and they are more motivated than ever before. It hasn't been like that in our system in Norway for many, many, many years, because in the 1980s we had in some prisons, a lot of riots. We had HIV. Mostly all inmates were drug addicted, and they were sentenced to long sentences because they were using drugs. So the prison population was very different in the 80s. And we also had several riots than we wanted. So something must be done at that time. But then, important thing, the parliament, they developed 2 different kinds of white paper that says something about now we have to change something. They changed the training for the staff. They changed the prison officer role. They changed how to avoid reoffending, and a lot of things they changed in these white papers. And of course it was a lot of resistance from the old prison officers and the old governors and the old regime. They wanted to do the same as they did before. So there was a lot of fights, not physically, but fights between the staff, that we want to keep the old system and not try something new. But the prison officer role became very different than in the 80s when I started. I started in 85 and I'm still there. So now the officers have a totally different role than they had before. Before there was a guard. They were standing at checkpoints, counting, and that was all the things they did. Now they have a combined role where there are guards, but they are also social workers. Social workers in a way. But they are the first contact point for the inmate. When the inmate wants to do something, apply for something, need a doctor appointment or something, that person has to go through his personal contact officer. So we have selected officers to be contact personal officer. So they are responsible for maybe 10, 15 inmates each, the staff, the prison officers. That means they have more responsibilities, the officers, but every time they have to communicate, inmate and staff. So the officers need to be more interactive, need to talk to the inmate and ask questions. How are you today? I'm fine. How are you? So they start to talk. And this is also what we call dynamic security, which is one of the methodology we are using. We have 3 types of security, but dynamic security one of them. The other is static security, which is the cameras, the wires, the bars. And then you have the organizational security, which is the shift plans, the internal routine, and so on. But then dynamic security is about how you interact with people. Instead of watching the inmates from a screen or from behind glasses and pushing buttons, you have to be in the environment where the inmates are living. And then you need to talk to people about daily life, the weather, whatever. And then when you do that, you will discover very early if something is wrong, if they have used drugs, if they are sober, whatever, if they start something happening in the unit. So dynamic security is very important in our work. That's why we are training the officers 2 years at the academy. In 2 years from now, we hope that we will make a bachelor degree for all the students at the academy. So that 2 years training, combining theoretical training and practical training in one of the training prisons we have, in total 10. So back to your questions, we have done a lot with the officers and also the management, because the managements need to understand the officers and opposite. But again, if you just change the officers and don't change the management or the general director in Norway, They don't understand each other. So everything must come from the top, and everybody have to understand the concept. So again, we have tried a lot. We have failed, of course, and we will always see inmates that doesn't fit into what we are thinking is the best. This is something we have discussed a lot, but you have different kind of groups of inmates. In Norway, and I see the same in Latvia and same in the other countries we are working in, we have a group that is getting bigger and bigger. The persons in the first group, they don't really care about ending up in prison because that's their profession. That's a part of the game. Go to prison, do your sentence, and they continue the crime after release. It's very difficult to do something about them. It's more or less what we call organized crime. This is heavy guys. They are really doing special crime, and they don't care. They're paying the price. Then you have a big group in the middle. Those who are going in and out, maybe 20 sentences during a lifetime. And then you have, and they're mostly motivated to change because they have a long history before they go to prison. And then you have the last group. You see them once in prison. You can send them to programs, you can send them to whatever, or they can attend or not, but when they are released, you never see them again. So the middle group is very important. And then our job is to motivate them, prison officers, social workers, trying to create a life inside the prison that is something similar to life outside. If we can do that, they will be more prepared for release. We cannot force them to change, but we can do the best we can to motivate them. So that's our job. This is also a matter of respect. We are a good host for NGOs, for other state agencies. We are bringing them into prison. We are doing everything we can, working with them individually, but it's their choice. If they don't want to change, we can do nothing about it. But we are there to motivate them, mentor them, and do the best we can. I think right now we have around 20% reoffending rate, and that's quite a good number in total. I just need to say that, yeah, this is Norwegians. No, we have 66 different nationalities in our correctional service. Top 3, Lithuania, Romania. What do you think is the next one?
Latvia.
No, Latvia. No. Romania. That's the top 3 list in ours, but 66 different nationalities. So we are a little bit familiar with different cultures. Mm-hmm. But this is, we are still struggling, and we don't have the right concept yet, but it takes time to change a system and people. But we are there to try to motivate to change.
Jā, liels paldies par
Thank you very much for this story of experience. Dear people present, you can prepare your questions and through Slido you can prepare and send in your questions. The keyword is questions. Do ask, send your questions in. We will ask them to experts. Madam Spure, you just heard the experience of Norway, how they are trying to model or create a maximum environment for model the environment outside of prison, out there. And this is the way we have to go. Can you kind of outline our experience here in Latvia, how this resocialization is taking place with programs or examples, or maybe an agenda, how this resocialization process is taking place for people, how to make this environment closer to the outside world, and how these people are sometimes taught a normal everyday life, how to live a life. Just tell us an example, 2-day example, how this work is being done. Let's start with an example. When a person enters a penitentiary, they are preparing themselves. They are being prepared for their release from the day one. And we evaluate risks and need analysis. During the first 2 months, individual assessment of risks and necessities are identified. Biggest risks are being identified for reoffending. His case is being looked at. Previous experience. Also, the reasons for committing a crime is being established, and this is being worked upon, and based on this assessment, a resocialization plan is being created. And later on, based on this, this work, we are planning this work together with an inmate, because that is his or her plan, not our staff plan. Maybe taking into account the needs of education. Maybe this person is an adult, but he has completed 6 grades. So primary, we can involve this person into educational program. Also, we can offer vocational training in every penitentiary. There is quite a wide range of specialties to be learned, of vocational trainings. But that doesn't mean that we are just teaching this person, for example, how to sew. And that's it. This person is given a choice to choose. A specialist is involved, psychologist, social worker. This person is being taught, or his skills are being renewed for social basic skills. And this person shouldn't feel that he's taken care. This is an easy way. He's taken care of. He's being clothed. He's in the warm place, and he's being fed. But that's not the main thing. He has to self-serve him or herself, and ensure and develop socially. So this is takes a lot of time. Involvement of behavioral programs, social programs. Biggest difficulties what we encounter in our prisons is a big number of people with mental deficiencies or psychological issues. For those people, it is more difficult to involve them in employment programs. So we are trying to elaborate instruments how to work with this target group. Another target group, which is very important in our penitentiaries, are substance users, be it narcotic or drug abusers or alcohol abusers. So again, thanks to Norway grants, we could implement a program or a project with the help of which we have created Resocialization Center for abusers. They work with special programs, and our staff is specially trained to work with them. This is an important island where we are creating an atypic environment, where the environment itself is therapeutical, like a community environment. They are being placed in one single cells, but where they can be with and by themselves, where they cannot be influenced by others. But at the same time, they are from morning to night. They are being involved, engaged in group work, also with individual work, etc. But the main issue is to work with a person individually, and this individual evaluation, individual involvement in corresponding in most suited resocialization programs. Only then we can achieve our goal. But the main issue is self-motivation. We cannot force anyone. If this person is not self-motivated, we cannot make someone think in a different way, change values, change behavior, change deviant behavior. So we are giving a choice voluntarily to want to change, but we are not forgetting to motivate, to persistently motivate to want to change. We understand that we can achieve our goal on a daily basis when working with first-timers and also with differently with re-offenders. For first-timers, we are trying to adapt a different method, and apply a different method. But we understand that there might be a stagnation of thinking, and that's why reoffending ratio can differ, but we are applying different methods with reoffenders and with first-timers. And you can never know what works for which, for whom. For one person, that might be a talk with psychiatrists. For the other one, it can be with a prison director, or for someone, it can be a chat with an inmate when the person would want to return back to the society as a full-fledged member of the society. And this is the aim why we go to work every day. Before we tackle the second topic about the society and society's attitude, dignified attitude towards inmates, we have many questions. We will try to respond to them. And then we will tackle the second issue. Some questions that have been sent in: how many inmates are there in Latvia, and how society can get involved into the resocialization process. So how many inmates do we have? In Latvia, at the moment, we have 3,120 inmates. This number can change daily, but approximately 3,120. We have achieved a diminishment of this number thanks to amendments to our criminal code being adopted in 2013, as well as other issues, for example, migration issues and number of our inhabitants. But all in all, I believe this is also thanks to amendments to our legislation and how a person can get involved into resocialization process in many ways, but I will mention just some. For example, we, the probation service, are looking for companions for voluntary work. Maybe in some words, what does it mean? A person, a companion, a volunteer applies for it. How does it happen, this cooperation? I apply to be a volunteer, and what then? Then there is a recruitment process. Because both parties, we and the person, have to understand, is it really what the person wants, what he or she has applied for, and whether this person can do that physically and mentally. There are some limitations. For example, one have to be of age and a grown-up. Also, there is a short training process where we talk over important things, for example, issues of target group, needs of the target group, also reasons for committing crime, also dignified relations. But what do we ask from those volunteers? They have to be a friendly shoulder. They will have to be companions or brothers or elder brothers to those people. Those are probably helping with documentation, with job applications, maybe some recreation activities, culture activities, doing something together. This is an demonstration of alternative lifestyle, of normal lifestyle that is needed from those volunteers. We had also some questions from participants here. Do ask your question if you do have them. I wrote my question in Slido. Slido. Madam Spore, this question it goes to you. Do we have enough staff to work with clients, and how motivated is our staff? What have you planned for attraction of additional staff? Today, in our penitentiaries, there are approximately 2,700 employees, but we do have 300 vacancies. Out of that, psychologists, guards, as well as healthcare people, specialists. Every day we turn to, with the help of social media, we look for people, for motivated people who would want to join our team. What do? We take care of professional education, development of our staff. This is the basic issue. We have actually three cornerstones: environment, good salary, as well as education and room for development and career development. This is what we can offer. Now, if we talk about work environment, this is something that we do every year. We are making infrastructure better in the boundaries of our budget. What we can do in our old prisons and renewed prisons, but we never deviate away from the idea of the new prison being built, because if we had this new prison, this would cover 1/3 of our needs for placing inmates in a dignified environment, as well as placing our staff in dignified working environment. In 2019, we implemented remuneration reform, and now the average guard with secondary education can receive far above average salary. This is prescribed by our legislation. We pay about 98% of what has been prescribed by our national legislation. Speaking about statistics, how many are there reoffenders, and how many never return back after first imprisonment? In our penitentiaries, about 50% are first-time offenders, or 46%, to be exact. Reoffenders for the third time, a lot of people. Almost the rest of out of these 100. Speaking about penitentiaries, ratio on 1,000 inhabitants, we have diminished the number, so the rate is much better in the last 10 years. Also taking into account that we have a small country and we do not have a lot of inhabitants, but 3,000 is a lot, is still a lot. What activities, what actions helped diminish the number of inmates? Amendments to the legislation in 2013, when amendments to our criminal code came in force, which allowed to diminish the term of sanctions. Latvia was reproached by European Union of the disproportionately lengthy sentences. And again, if we are talking about returning back the inmates to the society, long sentences is never a fostering factor. This person most probably is going to be negatively influenced and is going to stagnate if imprisoned for a longer sentence. Thus we were able to diminish the number of inmates, taking into account the amount of sentence time. There were times where we could observe also immigration. People left Latvia. Also people who were inclined to committing crimes. Our potential clients were also amongst those who went abroad for search of better life. We saw that in our numbers and figures, but the basic criterion for diminishing the number of inmates was also the length of a sentence, and that helped with the efficiency of implementing sentences and executioning sentences. Do you think that Orange is the New Black, this series, help you or impedes your work? Is it based on at least half-truth? Have you seen the series, Orange is the New Black? I probably didn't understand the question. I have to say that I haven't seen these TV series. Most probably it contains information about women's prison and what is happening in women's prisons. People are interested, viewers are interested, what is happening there, what is happening behind prison doors. And according to you, are those series help, or on the contrary, they increase the stereotypes? Maybe these series and probably other movies do increase the number of stereotypes. Most probably, I would base my answer on documentaries that could show some reality. And very recently, you will see a documentary about our women's prison, our Ilģuciems prison, where you will be able to see how inmates are living there, how their way of thinking changes, what impacts them, what makes them change for better or for worse. I don't know whether American series do help us or not, because we have quite different history, experience, also perception of life. I believe that the most important for us is in our prisons, irrespective of infrastructure problems, what we cannot solve yet, to make this environment as close to normal as possible. The person is being punished by deprivation of liberty. We cannot come up with a double punishment by making them live in a bad environment, in undignified environment. I do remember myself in Portal Delphi, there were interviews with inmates, in-depth interviews where journalists were asking about their motivation to commit crime. What does it mean for them to live in prison? Are they ready to return? Are they willing to return? For me, that was very interesting. Those interviews helped me to understand motivation and action of these people, activities of those people, and I changed my attitude towards them, my stereotypes towards them. I believe that those interviews and documentaries about what's happening behind the prison doors could help the attitude of the society to make better and to help foster those dignified relationship. Kim, we do have a question to you. Is this prestigious in Norway to work in penitentiaries? And is there a big interest among students to work in the system?
Yes. We have the academy not far from Oslo. Every year we have around 1,100 applicants. Out of them, we select 500 for interview, where they have a physical test and so on. And we end up every year with around 175 cadets or students. The benefits for the students is paid education, of course, but that's only one reason why they're applying. As I said, in a few years now, we will have a bachelor for working in a prison, to be a prison officers. And that's also has something to do with the recruitment process, because if you have a bachelor, you can use the bachelor for a lot of other things. So right now we have good numbers of applicants.
Jā, paldies. Vēl nedaudz.
Thank you very much. Let's continue the story of Norway, which is well known, famous in the whole world. This successful system, successful solution. The question is to our Latvian counterparts as well as maybe Kim. What is your attitude towards life sentence? And speaking about human dignity, how about life sentence and human dignity? And the case might be, we can mention the example of Mr. Breivik's. How in these cases you can establish dignified relations. Let's start with our experience, with our local experience. How about people who have been sentenced for life, who will never leave the prison? How about them and how to establish dignified relations? Initially, I would like to tell about our statistics. Latvia is a small country. We can never be proud of a few people being imprisoned. And we cannot never be proud of life sentences. We have 68 people sentenced to life. And this is not a small number for our small country, but every one of them lives with a hope that they will be pardoned one day. Life sentence is a harsh notion. That means to the end of one's life. But this is not true entirely, because everyone who is sentenced to life can apply for release. And this is their whole hope. We can never say what is there to lose for one who is sentenced for life. They have a lot to lose. They have their life to lose. There are people who punish themselves, who are sentenced for life. They don't want to communicate with anyone. They punish themselves. With this discommunication, they are punishing themselves. But also for those people, there are many possibilities how to materialize themselves. They can learn a profession, they can study, they can, but this is rather limited. Those possibilities are limited, but they do have possibilities also to work. We do have a possibility for those people to do simple tasks. The best example that we have implemented is for people who have received life sentence, for them, if they are good in resocialization after a certain time, they can enter the general part of the prison, thus socializing with others. That is a step towards the rest of the society, or towards their release. Everything is in their own hands, how they behave, whether they are motivated, whether they are resocializing. We have no case law when the court has released someone from a life sentence, but this day might come, and this day might come very soon, and the society and the inmate has to be prepared for that. And there is a question to accept or not to accept, to respect or disrespect, to shed away or to give a chance. You already drew a very good picture about our second part of our discussion, whether we as the society are ready to look at people who have been released from prisons in a dignified way, whether we are ready to adopt them, to accept them. Are we ready to accept the fact that in our stairway, in our apartment building, there is someone who has spent a lot of time in prison? Are we ready to look at that person without suspicion, or are we doing everything to try to avoid them, to try to complain about these people being released back into our apartment building? But I would like to hear how the case of Mr. Breivik's has changed, or maybe on the contrary, not changed anything at all in the system of Norway about dignified human dignity. Whether this case has given you a lesson to learn to the society, to all your prison system, what happened in your system as well as in the society after this case?
Well, I'm not going to talk about Breivik. I never do that. But in general, we don't have life sentences in Norway, but we have something we call preventive detention. And right now, around 100 persons from 5 years to 10 years to 15 years preventive detention. That means if they are dangerous at the time they are supposed to be released, the court can actually continue the sentence, but it's a court decision. So in theory, we have life sentence, but so far there never died anyone from serving the sentence in prison because of that. How to deal with that? They have the same opportunities that the others have. They are attending school, if they are able to do that. They have work. They're cooking their own food, like the others. So it's no difference. But they have more follow-ups. It's more paperwork, and they have more officers following them normally in high-security prisons.
Jā, paldies. Nedaudz varbūt par mūsu pašu sabiedrību. Kā jums šķiet no...
Speaking about our society from our systemic approach, is our society getting better, more opened, more tolerant towards inmates, former inmates, and more helpful? Maybe one of the instruments that could help in this matter, the number of volunteers. Is this number becoming bigger or not? Is the number of volunteers getting better or higher? I wouldn't say that the whole society is becoming more tolerant. As the rest of the world, we are aging, our society is aging, new generation is stepping in with new knowledge. Everything flows and goes in circle, and including us. During the time when we as establishments, authorities, are communicating with the society like we are doing now, why do we have to think about inmates about people in prison? We are not concerned about that. But when we are the victims, or maybe some acquaintances of ours become victims or inmates, then we are getting involved. Or maybe when there are those loud cases where everyone is involved and has an opinion. It's like a sea, sometimes calm, sometimes not so calm. But talking about the understanding, promotion of the understanding amongst our society. This is growing, and I can tell it by the number of volunteers in both establishments. I have worked for 8 years, 20. Before that, we had 20 to 30 volunteers. Now, during a year, we have recruited 100 people a year. Now we have more than 500 volunteers. Is it a lot? But each of those persons are talking with their acquaintances. They are participating in our trainings. They change family circle around them, thus promoting understanding amongst different groups of society. Also, documentaries, TV shows, reality shows, depicting one person, showing this person why this person has stepped on a criminal path. That also helps promote or raise the understanding of our society. Today we, for example, had a question that once a week inmates can wash themselves. And the society can exclaim in horror, namely how once a day. But a lot of our society can afford a shower or a warm bath just once a week. I'm not talking about brushing your teeth or washing your face or hands, but washing yourself entirely. That is with whom you compare with. Also, possibilities for our clients, access to internet and access to internet to our society. This is also fostering the understanding of our society. We no longer do have this picture of a monster, a gray mass that we have to be scared of. But at the moment when we understand that there are differences between people of this gray mass. Maybe someone has stolen something in a shop. Maybe someone has abused substances. Maybe young people, some do away with it, some not. I do know that many people have tried substances. And they have never been punished for that. But someone tries it for the first time and is getting the punishment and has criminal record. If someone falls for the first time or even for the second time, let's accept that. Let's accept that because we have to accept and start again and again and again with the same person. What gives us strength? It is based on research, on surveys, on data. The older you become, the less you commit crimes. Age is actually one of the influencing factors. I'm not talking about criminal groups. but about old age as an indicator. Where stopping doing crime. Young people are trying to survive when they are either in the organized group or alone. They are trying to show off. For many people, for many young people, the outcome is rather bad or even lethal if they are combining crime with substance abuse. But we have to have a second chance instead to stand up and try again. Let us summarize our discussion and let us come to common conclusions or key aspects for our discussion. Is it possible to define some aspects that would ensure safe return of a client back to the society? What you should be doing as the system, or also maybe policy makers, probation service? Is there a three-step remedy or panacea that could help those people to return back to society? Kim, maybe you can come up with those first three aspects of the summary.
I don't know if it's the first three aspects, but the question must be, who owns the convicted person? Who is the owner here? It's very easy to blame the correctional service for this when the reoffending rate is 20 or 50 or 40%. Blame the correctional service. It's their fault. They're not doing enough. But remember, this person, let's say he have a 3-year sentence. He go to prison when he's 25. He has lived 25 years before he goes to prison. So he have made a lot of choices during the first 25 years. And then he is in our system for 3 years. And then someone in the society say, you have to fix this problem, okay? Working with people in prison is probably the most difficult job in the world because it's so complex. So we release that person after 3 years or 2 years, 2/3 in Norway. So what is he going back to, or she? Something. But the society, state agencies, health department, education, whatever, NGOs must play on the same ground before that person gets released. But the person needs to be motivated. So it's actually not the correctional service who owns the prisoner, it's the society. So we have to work together if the person is motivated for change. That was just one point, but it's enough, isn't it?
Paldies. Šis ir ārkārtīgi interesants.
This is a very interesting aspect that you mentioned, Kim. Maybe Ilona or Laila can also help and tell us. At that moment, when the release time is about to come, how we all together, institutions, let's say municipalities, state agencies, policy makers, the society, can we join hands in a good way, evaluate the needs of that person? Maybe that person needs a place to live, maybe social aid, some help. How quickly we can come together, maybe at even one table, and discuss the needs of that individual and how far we can solve those issues. What Kim just said. I will start with the following. There is one thing already. We have interinstitutional meeting, and thanks to probation services, we came to this conclusion with state police, prison administration, and probation service, as well as child protection agency. Initially, it was foreseen for those clients who were released as violent criminals and sex offenders. Initially, that was meant for them, but now in Valmiera prison, for example, where we involve also social workers, municipality workers, or maybe health specialists or safety specialists, and we look at specific cases, specific individuals for those inmates who are about to be released to the society. We evaluate biggest risks that can be traceable afterwards, after they leave the prison gate. And this is a very good practice and initiative that we have already doing, but this is not enough. And what I would like to do, not to throw a stone at someone else, but I would like to turn to municipalities, and not Riga, outside of Riga. Riga is more potential with their resources and give support, but in the rest of municipalities, I'm turning to the rest of municipalities. We have to understand one thing, that those people do not come from Mars to our prison. And they leave the prison for a certain municipality. So that would be very important for municipalities to follow what is happening with that client. First of all, maybe for protecting the inhabitants from that individual, and to enclose that person back into society, not to demonstrate risks for the society. When this person leaves the prison gate, maybe this person has not even a single euro, and he has to eat today, not tomorrow, when he will be able to earn this euro. These are primary needs of that person that we have to evaluate. Another deficit or a weak link that we lack, that there is not intermediary institution between prison and freedom. We can call it a halfway house or another name. We shouldn't be giving that fish, but we have to teach that person how to fish. With the person, when leaving a prison, doesn't mean that he doesn't need any more support for resocialization. And it is good that there is a probation supervision, but sometimes there is no supervision at all. And there is no halfway house, or it's just a formal establishment. So we have to talk about real support. It is for the safety, for the benefit of the safety of the society. It is for our own benefit. Thank you very much, Ilona. Laila? Ilona already said almost everything that I wanted to mention. It is important. A crucial role is being played by municipalities, dignified attitude towards former inmates as their inhabitants, as inhabitants of their municipalities. However dignified the attitude in prison is towards in an inmate, it can all collapse when the person is released. So that person has to be provided with the basic needs. That person has to eat from the very first day and to have a roof over their head on the very first day, so the person doesn't have to go and steal something to eat on the very first day of release. So this has to be a function of municipality, and the resources have to be allocated for that. If that person has stepped on a positive change track, but if when getting out of the prison, that person cannot continue that positive change, then the fall back can be even much graver, much bigger. And what we haven't discussed today in prisons, also in probation, and even afterwards, or the maybe family reunion has to be helped with. We already mentioned a companion, voluntary work. If the person is getting back to the same circle, which is not very positive, or if that person has no any ties with the family, then positive motivation that has been acquired in prison can be thrown in the ditch in one day. This is why it is very important to have a safe environment to return to when being released, where to solve difficult questions, where people can establish or renew their families with their loved ones. So two aspects, state agencies, municipalities, and contact with the loved ones, with the family. Thank you very much, Laila. Very important and very good closing remarks, because the person comes into this world in a family. Then he studies, lives, works. Some get into penitentiary, but the person is still a person, and we have to do a lot to help everyone. And thank you very much, everyone, for doing this work for the benefit of the society. And for helping this person who has come from a family to be returned back to the family, because families do accept as us all as we are. Thank you very much, Ilona, Laila, Mihails, and Kim. Thank you for the discussion. Thank you for questions. And let us meet in the next discussion. Thank you. This one is over.